Afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. How you doing? Video guys, audio guys, how are we looking? All right, awesome. As you can tell, we're going to be taping the panels, and they're going to be available pretty soon after each one is finished online via YouTube and whatnot through our social media outlets and our website. So feel free to review them after these are over throughout the course of the weekend. And spread the word. My name is Dan Hannon, one of the co-founders and organizers of the event. Welcome to the 12th annual New Hampshire Film Festival. This is day 2. It's been very exciting so far, and now begins our first of 3 days of great panels and workshops. I just wanted to hand it right away to this crowdfunding panel and our moderator to my right here. This is Matt Newton, the director of the New Hampshire Film and Television Office. Enjoy, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Well, welcome, everybody. This is the first of the panels that we'll have over the next couple days. Again, my name is Matt Newton. I run the film and TV office for the state, and one of the things that's become a bit of a pet project for me is tracking crowdfunding projects in New Hampshire, those who are using Kickstarter or Indiegogo to fund their projects. And back in February, we started a page on our website that tracks all these projects, and filmmakers are invited to list those projects with us. And the little handout that you'll see, just to get things started here, is data that I pulled from the time we started listing. So we've had 21 New Hampshire projects listed on that page, 21 crowdfunding projects that I know about. And of those, 13 were successful. 9 used Kickstarter, 3 used Indiegogo, 1 used Mobcaster. And it was successful funding for a total of $80,000. And that's great news to see that filmmakers in New Hampshire are using these sites and getting their projects funded and getting them off the ground. So I thought, hey, let's talk more about this. And it's a perfect idea for a panel. And welcome to our panelists. And I think what we'll do is we'll go down the line and let folks introduce themselves and tell a little bit about where they're from, what they do, and how they're connected in all this. And we can just have a bit of a conversation, and we'll open it up to you as well. And we'll field some questions and talk a little bit more. So why don't we start way down on the other end there, and we'll start with Kyle.
Hey, guys. I'm Kyle Turgeon. I wrote and directed Figments of a Father. Sue back there produced it, and we did a Kickstarter. We had a $10,000 goal, and I guess I got my start from Sensation of Sight way back when I was 14.
My name is Lisa Rudin. I came out here from LA. I produced the film Misconnections, which plays tonight at 6:30. We did 2 Kickstarter campaigns, one for 10,000 and one for 7. And before that, I was working as an assistant to a director for about 5 years. This was my first feature.
Hi, my name is Matt Benson. I'm an attorney at a firm, Cook Little, Rosenblatt and Manton in Manchester. Corporate lawyer, have been dealing with some questions and issues that have popped up with crowdfunding, both equity and non-equity based crowdfunding. I am by far the least creative person in the room, I'm sure, but hopefully can answer your questions on the legal side anyway in the crowdfunding stuff. So.
Hi, I'm Laina Barakat. I am a producer for Either Or Films. I recently produced the film Only Daughter in August that I'm sure I'll talk more about as we go. I'm also the director of the Monadnock International Film Festival, which is a new film festival in the state. And I've done lots and lots of crowdfunding campaigns, I suppose, projects for all different types of organizations, and always art-based, but from books to pottery to my own personal music, that kind of stuff. So I've gone through the route many times.
And I'm Laura Azevedo, and I'm the Associate Director of a company called the Filmmakers Collaborative, which is a nonprofit that works as a fiscal sponsor for filmmakers getting their projects done. And my connection with these crowdfunding opportunities is that it gives a filmmaker the opportunity to give their donors a tax deduction. So if you donate through us, they can get the tax deduction. So
It's good to know.
that's it.
Thank you. Welcome, all of you. I just want to kick things off with a really simple question, and it's as simple as you're either Mac or PC. Indiegogo versus Kickstarter or any other, they're cropping up all over the place. Some are disappearing. Who's got a preference for what? And Laina, why don't we start?
Was I looking very enthusiastic? It's a really good question. I've gone back and forth over the past few years. When I guess the first campaign I did was through Kickstarter. I believe that in my experience, and maybe other people find it differently, but Kickstarter is a bit more, I think it's more widely known than any of the other sites. So that was my first choice for using Kickstarter. And I liked the layout of it a bit better, which is just a usability thing. So I did my first campaign with Kickstarter, and it was successful, and I enjoyed it. And then the next one that I began researching was for a film project, and I found that Indiegogo is far more popular when it comes to film. I believe even its origins really started with film, if I'm correct on that. So the type of people that might be interested in funding a film would definitely be more likely to be looking through Indiegogo than Kickstarter. I also found that by the time I was ready to make my second campaign, people knew Kickstarter well enough now, it was not a new concept, that when they saw Indiegogo, it only took a few minutes for them to see, oh, it's the same type of a thing, it's crowdfunding. So they may have been introduced to crowdfunding through Kickstarter, but now the doors are sort of open to the concept and it's not as difficult. So my personal preference is Indiegogo for two basic reasons. There's a lot of differences, one of which, I don't know if things have changed now, but when I first did my campaign with Kickstarter, you had to go through Amazon.com or some other sort of PayPal format. You couldn't just load a credit card in, which is a really big turnoff for somebody who wants to quickly donate to realize I have to set up a username and a password if I don't have Amazon or PayPal. And that's a really big deterrent for a lot of people. So that's one thing. Indiegogo allows you to just choose the option of a direct credit card, and that way anybody can quickly go in and pay, and there is no fee, because that's my second point of why I prefer Indiegogo. The way that the finances are broken down with Kickstarter, for those of you who don't know, it's an all or nothing funding approach. So you have to make your full goal or exceed it in order to get any funding, which is great in a lot of ways and encourages many people to donate because they know that they will donate to a successful project that will be actually produced. They don't know, okay, you're set out for $10,000, you only made $1,000, what are you going to do with the $50 I gave you because you can't make the film that you said you were, or whatever. So Kickstarter works only that way. They take 5% of your earnings, and then through the credit card, depending on which option you use, Amazon or what's the other one? PayPal, thank you. It's 3 to 5% additionally they tack on. So you're looking at 8 to 10% that they will take of your money. When it comes to Indiegogo, you can choose either flexible funding, which means you are allowed to keep whatever you raise, whether it's the goal or not, or locked-in funding. So you may turn off some people who say, as I said before, I only want to give to something that will raise the full amount. But you also have the option, I really only need $8,000 for my film. I'm going to say $10,000 and hope that I'll get there or whatever. Not that you can really make a movie on $8,000. I'm just saying film. But basically, you have the option, and some will cater to different projects. And the way their percentages work, if you decide the flexible funding option, they take 9%, but if you reach your goal amount, they only take 4%. And then if you'd like to use Amazon or PayPal, it's an additional 3% that they take off. So you're looking at a max of 7%, a minimum of 4% if you reach your goal. So if you feel confident you're going to make your goal, I find that Indiegogo is a much more cost-efficient approach. Sorry. I'm long-winded at times.
Anybody want? Lisa, do you want to jump in on your preferences and?
Yeah, we used Kickstarter, and I preferred to use Kickstarter just because we really needed to make our goal in order to make the movie. So it was a good, it was also our first time, but we did a second campaign, and we chose to go back to Kickstarter because of that.
And Kyle, what about you?
I preferred Kickstarter. I mean, you raised a lot of good points about Indiegogo, for sure. But Kickstarter, I think, is cool because that all or nothing funding creates this momentum that goes.
Totally.
And two, I think people felt like it was a much safer investment, that, it was like a goodwill thing, that they could put, $50 or whatever, knowing that if we don't make our goal, they get it right back, and their cards don't get charged. And also, everyone knows Kickstarter. I mean, better than Indiegogo, I think. Especially the older audience is more likely to have heard of Kickstarter instead of Indiegogo. And I think that credibility has people aren't going to be like, oh, let me put my credit card in this website I've never heard of. So that was a big reason too.
How do you think, as filmmakers, as independent filmmakers, crowdfunding has changed the ask for films? Is it that much easier, or is it just it's still difficult, but it's just changed the game a little bit? What are your thoughts on approaching people for money with using these tools? Anybody who can jump in.
Do you want to jump?
I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. We wouldn't have been able to do our project without Kickstarter, because we couldn't have gone to, I think, friends and family and just asked for money. This made it official. But I know there's a lot of controversy in the industry because there are actual, there's like people who have sort of made it in the industry, like big comedians who are now trying to fund projects on Kickstarter. And people are getting sort of angry about that it's for the indie filmmaker. And I don't actually agree with that, but I think it's fine for anybody.
I was just going to kick in. I mean, I think a lot of the old-fashioned ways to raise money, selling stock and that kind of thing, don't work particularly well for some of the projects that we're talking about today. So the Kickstarters and the Indiegogos and those other places are just a much more viable, vibrant way, project-based system to be able to raise capital that allows these projects to go that might not otherwise get any runway to even give it a shot. So.
New Hampshire has rules, tax rules, for the money. Could you elaborate on that? Is there some restrictions in New Hampshire?
I don't know specifically which ones you're talking about. I guess.
But there are. Doesn't New Hampshire have some laws around the crowdfunding money and how you use it? I mean, this is a rumor.
Yeah, for those on the video who didn't hear the question, it was asking if New Hampshire had any specific tax laws regarding.
Yeah, without providing any specific tax advice, what I can tell you, is it's actually an open question. It's something that's been discussed. I mean, if you're out there raising, $10,000, or some of the projects on Kickstarter have gotten, I think the biggest Kickstarter project was over $10 million, right, for a watch or something. What is that? Is that taxable income? Do you have to keep some of that to pay taxes on? I think you need to assume that that's at least something you need to plan for, so you're not caught later saying, oh my gosh, now Uncle Sam is knocking on our door looking for a piece.
Yeah, that's an interesting question though, because you're not receiving payment. You're not working for payment. It's technically a gift. It's a donation. So I'm not exactly sure how it works. It's not like I'm going to come, do this freelance job for you and you're going to pay me. So I'm not exactly sure. I'm not familiar with any legal ramifications on that.
What's Kickstarter's auditing procedure for something like that?
No idea.
I don't think there is one.
Yeah.
But they do check in. Amazon sends you a quarterly thing asking you to claim how much you received. So they do track it.
So there's no follow-up in terms of, can you verify that all of this went into the film?
No, that's a very good question and point. I've thought of that myself many times, but no. I mean, they are scrupulous when they go through your campaigns to make sure that this is a legitimate project, that you've done enough work to show that this is not just an idea you made up to try to make money. So their screening process is very good, but other than that, no.
Yeah, I would say I actually did some looking into fraud and Kickstarter and Indiegogo the last time I was on a crowdfunding panel. There's not a lot out there. I mean, I think the whole theory behind crowdfunding is the crowd is smarter than any one individual. And they ferret out if there are problems with these. There was a case where some people were trying to get a video game going on Kickstarter, and they were borrowing images from other people and things like that to make their program look more legit. And it was ferreted out before they hit their goal. So there are those kind of checks, and Kickstarter actually is becoming much more involved in providing some tools and things for project starters to think about to make sure that they're going to be able to actually do the project that they want to do for the money they're trying to raise.
Right.
So keeping these websites legitimate, I guess, in the eyes of the crowd is incredibly important. And I think it's self-policing to a large extent.
The other thing, can I go back to the question, your last question really quickly?
Sure.
The one thing I was going to say that I think how crowdfunding has changed sort of the ask or the, fundraising element to filmmaking. I think that there are two concrete reasons in which it helps or it changes things, but I think it's also an interesting response, or it comes very nicely at the time of a definite economic shift when it comes to the film industry and raising money for films and what's possible. I mean, I even remember with our first film, Sensation of Sight, the budget for that, over $1 million, close to $2 million for the budget, and it was shot on film, and it was a very different thing. And our last film was a rare exception as far as the price tag on it, but we could have made that film for $50,000, $100,000, and there, it's different stylistically in that much, but it's what you're able to do now for a less amount of money is quite remarkable. And so using crowdfunding, it's going to be harder for me, let's say, to try to raise $2 million through Kickstarter or any crowdfunding campaign, but it may be far more realistic that I could raise $50,000, because you're looking at people who maybe can't say, oh, here's my $10,000 contribution. Perhaps there are large campaigns, but you're looking at more people to give smaller amounts of money and giving more creative involvement and control to some degree to the average public, to your viewer. And so my two favorite ways that crowdfunding has changed the way that we raise money is that, A, you're not looking for investors, so you don't have to then pay these people back at the end. You've found other ways to give back to them and value their investment and their time and their donation. But you get to the end, and let's say you want to try to get your film picked up. Okay, rather than saying, great, you're going to buy my movie for $50,000, but I have to pay $30,000 of it back to investors, everything that you make is then profit, whether it's deferred payments or you keep it, doesn't matter. You don't have people to then have to pay out. So it makes it far more financially viable for the filmmaker when it comes to that moment. And you also then, you're building your own audience before your movie is even made. So right now, let's say my last campaign, we had 100 people who donated. So it's 100 people who are now, I've got their email addresses, they're following us on Facebook, they're curious to see not only what is going to happen with this movie and when will I see it, but what's going to happen with this movie that I helped make happen. They feel ownership, they get excited, they're going to want to share it with other people, and it gives them a way to feel involved in the process and to build your audience before your movie has even finished being made, which I think is a really excellent benefit for independent filmmakers.
Talk to what you offered your people, each of you.
Yeah, let's talk really quickly about the different perks, some interesting perks. Laina, why don't you?
Yes, it's a good question. One thing I have found through the process of perks, doing things that have to get shipped are not your best bet. I did a crowdfunding campaign 2 years ago for something personal, and it took me 1.5 years to get everything out because I had to make dinosaur origami and weird things and ship them and mail them, and it was absurd. And the shipping costs I didn't think about, so don't do a lot of things that you have to mail if possible. Doing things that are very personal are really, really great. Digital downloads, those kind of things help. Something, making it seem exciting and unique, so it's not just, it's great. You can try to do pre-orders of your product, whether it's a book or a CD or a movie, and say, okay, for $25 you get a copy of this. Great, you're pre-ordering your product or pre-selling your product. But try to do something unusual that they're not going to ever get. I just helped a woman start a Kickstarter recently that was, she would handwrite recipes out that were featured in her book. She's an award-winning author, and she will send you handwritten recipes, and it's just a really interesting little thing. So why Matt was laughing is one of the things I was thinking to myself, okay, what can I offer? Because in our project, this last one with Only Daughter, we had 4 producers, and everyone, you know, for the most part, out of our financial demographics, my friends had the least amount of money. So I may have gotten a lot of people to donate, which I did, but they were more of $15, $20 donations. So I thought, okay, where there are other people on our campaign who maybe had less amount of people who donated, but they could donate $1,000. So I thought, what can I do that might make, you know, what can I offer that might make somebody say, oh, that's unusual, or I want that. So I'm a singer-songwriter, and I have a band called Girl and Piano, and so I offered that for anyone who gave $150, I would write a song for them and post a video, and I'd do it in an hour, and I'd get it up for them. So I had to write about 15 or 16 songs by the end of it, which was great when I'm trying to get ready for our production and I'm having to quickly record songs. But it was fun, and we definitely got a lot of extra funding from that, so clever things like
Kyle, Lisa, anything?
Yeah, I mean, we did pretty textbook stuff to begin with, you know, digital downloads, DVD copies. We screen printed some posters, which were pretty cool. And then, you know, as it went up, it became more and more ludicrous. I was going to, you know, make leather notebooks for people. I said I'd, like, paint your house for $2,000.
Did you ever have to do it?
No, which is pretty amazing. Thank God.
They gave you $2,000, you didn't have to.
Well, no one gave us 2,000, but I mean, it was really nice in that there were a lot of people who were just like, oh, you know, don't worry about sending us stuff. But still, like, I love making these notebooks, and people turned them down. So that was a little. I mean, they came from a good place. So plus, I don't have to make them.
You do also have to be careful of things like sometimes you donate something and don't think somebody will actually do it, and they will. I ended up with one of my campaigns having to sing Devo covers at a birthday party with my band, and it was quite funny. But we did it. We rocked it, and we had hats on and stuff. But yeah, be careful because people may take you up on crazy offers.
Going back to like the taxes, like if somebody was to donate to you, is it tax deductible for them?
Good question.
Another tax question?
It's tax deductible if you
go ahead.
use.
You take this one.
I mean, if we produce a movie, like is it tax deductible back to them?
It don't
No,
know.
it's not.
Only if you affiliate yourself with a nonprofit organization.
What's your fee?
Now, if we
5%.
make profit off of it, do we still have to pay taxes on that?
I would think
Yes.
so, yeah, if you
Yes.
make profits.
That was the question that was asked earlier.
Yeah, that's a good question.
All right, I just got a question. I've never been.
Okay, hang on. Why don't you come up and use this microphone? Because we got some people there.
We're making a movie that we're really interested in making.
Hi, we're the lowest of the low-budget movie makers in here. I'm very sure of that.
You'd be surprised.
There's my backpack and my video camera with me. All right, so
yeah.
I've never been to any of these websites. What is the best way to initially pitch your idea? Is it to write out like a quick synopsis, or is it
To the website or
to the website? You know,
I've been talking so much, we can all answer that.
like can you download a trailer?
to the
Like what can you do
people, or-
on
Yeah,
these
yeah.
websites to get your idea out
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, you can put a trailer up on
You
the
should
website.
some kind of a video, definitely.
You can put a video, or we had a storyboard artist who did Big Lebowski. We had him do one scene for us, and we posted those.
Nice.
And then the next time we did like an excerpt, like a trailer.
Yeah, a synopsis, a little bit where the funding's going is important for most people. You don't have to put that. A bit about who you are. If you've done anything else, you don't have to, but if you have done anything else, and then a video of some kind. Campaigns are far more successful if someone can click a video, and in a short amount of time. You don't want a 10-minute long video, but anywhere from a 1 to 5 minute video that is just a very brief pitch of here's what this is going to be about. And if you have footage already or something, then you could do a trailer, which would be excellent. But if you're starting from scratch, take a little video of you talking about it. Maybe show a couple pictures of locations or that kind of a thing. And just giving somebody something visual that they can quickly watch and learn without having to read the entire thing will then make them interested in reading more and finding out more. And then they'll read the rest and then hopefully give.
I want to bring Laura back around on this. We were talking a little bit about the nonprofit side of things and how can filmmakers use you via crowdfunding as sort of a fiscal agent.
Yep. So So fiscal sponsorship, for anybody who doesn't know what it is, just means if you want to make a film and you know somebody that wants to pay you to make the film or donate to your film, they actually donate to me and I give you the money, and I'm ultimately responsible to the donor for how their money is spent. And another thing the filmmaker doesn't need to worry about is being audited, because if at the end of the year your project is audited through my company as well, the donor in turn gets to use it as a tax deduction. Filmmakers Collaborative, the company I work for, started 25 years ago, and at that time it was mostly for documentary filmmakers working off of government grants, and the government couldn't donate directly to an individual. They needed to donate through a nonprofit, and so that's how it started. It's obviously grown and changed a lot over the past 25 years. There are a lot more features being made, and they're being made for a lot less. A lot fewer government grants are being given out. Foundation grants are being given out. And so this is sort of the way we've been changing with the times and allowing these crowdfunding campaigns like Kickstarter and Indiegogo to come through us back to the filmmaker. We take 5% no matter what, yeah. I mean, if it's a Indiegogo or if it's not, if it's crowdfunded or not.
Now, do you, if I can ask a question, I'm curious. Now, do you place the payment from you directly into someone else's Kickstarter account, or do you set up the campaign?
We set up the campaign.
And they allow
the filmmaker sets up the campaign, and we set up the Amazon account.
Okay, so because I was going to say, I know that Kickstarter and these don't have a nonprofit option, so it's through Amazon that you track. Like
Kickstarter does have a you can.
Oh, that's new.
Yeah,
that
and for that they lower the platform fee.
Okay,
and
excellent.
so if you go through a nonprofit instead of the 5,
right.
Kickstarter does take 5, but Amazon lowers the platform fee.
Okay.
To 2%.
Excellent.
So you end up losing 12% ultimately. If
Right.
Kickstarter's 5, Amazon's 2, our 5, you get that.
But that's great to know. Really, really good to know. Cool.
There's a question about Dana. Can you come on up? Yes. And we're trying to do this for the benefit of our viewing audience.
Sure. Staying with Laura for a second, can you then, you said you take 12%, but tell us all the benefits that filmmakers and donors get from working with you. Right.
Sure. Well, fiscal sponsorship is, we actually only take 5%. I just meant if you ultimately go through a crowdfunding. So you get your fiscally sponsored project, you get to offer your donors the tax deduction, and then the whole other side of what Filmmakers Collaborative is just networking. We have a website where you can post yourself, your bio, your trailers, and connect to other filmmakers, and we're nationwide. And so if you're shooting somewhere else in the country and you need to know information about locations, or you need shooters or sound people, through us, you can contact those people. You get to have we hold screenings, rough cut screenings. People are welcome to use our space for that. You get access to something that's called the Foundation Directory online, which costs about $2,000 a year for a membership. If you're a member of Filmmakers Collaborative, that's free. And that's an online database of any grant or foundation availability that there is.
Where in New Hampshire are you located?
Our office is actually in Waltham, Mass.
Oh,
but
Mass, okay.
We're everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's great.
Okay, can I ask a question too, now that you're leading the charge with asking questions from the panel? Are there resources out there that you guys are aware of that help, the new filmmakers learn how to use some of these platforms, either your platform or even the Kickstarters?
That would be
and Indiegogo?
Filmmakers Collaborative.
You guys do that?
We offer programming throughout the year, which is just monthly or bi-monthly training sessions, and sometimes they're put on by other members. Right now we have about 130 members nationwide, and sometimes they come and put on them, or we get industry experts. For instance, at the end of this month, we're running a program called Art of the Pitch, and it's where you come to where it's actually at a place in Waltham called the CDIA, where you come and you have 5 minutes to pitch your idea for a project. And if you have a trailer, you can show a trailer, but you have 5 minutes, and they're really strict about that. And then you do it in front of a panel of us, of industry experts, and your pitch is critiqued. So you have to have sort of thick skin, but it's a blast. And then we give cash prizes to the winner that you can put towards your project.
Excellent.
So it's just little training sessions like that. Crowdfunding, we have social media. It's called the CDIA, which is on Moody Street in Waltham, and it's Thursday night, October 25th.
Where is it again?
It's in Waltham, Mass. Yep. I have little cards right outside the door downstairs advertising it with the website and how you can get tickets and stuff.
That's great.
Ray, did you?
Yeah, there's another site too called filmmakingstuff.com, which is a really smart site. Jason Brubaker's site, filmmakingstuff.com, and they have a lot of free downloads and free, resources, and we love it. We all work off it. So that's filmmakingstuff.com, and it's a lot of freebies, and it's great.
I'd be curious as to getting back to sort of some of the basics of setting up your campaigns. How do you determine what level? How do you determine what's your goal? Lisa?
That's a good question. Because your goal is sort of never enough, it seems like. So for our first campaign, we chose 10,000, but then our camera package was donated to us. We had a lot of donations throughout the industry. But then we discovered that our insurance package for the camera that was free was going to cost half of our campaign. So that's why we had to do a second campaign. But we did the first one, and it got us through the first month of production and some of the initial fees, and then the second one was for the rest of production and post. And so, yeah.
Kyle, what about you?
So we did kind of a rough budget. We figured everything out, and then we had a little money set aside. So we deducted that and figured out what we needed, like bare minimum, and that's where we set our goal. And I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Can I ask you? I know that the filmmakers that I've dealt with that have done Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns have unbelievable stories to tell about how that campaign was more difficult than making the film. And can you talk about whether or not you found it challenging? He had a whole sort of psychology of the campaign where there are certain times where you want to release certain donors, and you want to, if by a certain point in the campaign you're not at least 50% of the way there, you should start to worry, and versus when you don't have to worry.
Yeah. I mean, I know for the percentage thing, I think it's on Kickstarter, I think it's that 20, oh shoot, now I can't forget. I think, oh yeah, campaigns that receive 20% of their funding within the first few days have an 80-something% chance of completing their goal, and projects that get over the 50% mark in a few days are at 98% of being successful. So you definitely, the first few days are very important. There is definitely and Kickstarter actually is really informative about this. There's sort of a schedule to the campaigns, whether they're a week or a month long or 2 months long. Your beginning, you're going to have a nice high. It's going to dip down in the middle, and then it's going to dip back up at the end. Even if it's a flexible funding campaign, that's the way that it operates. Kickstarter and Indiegogo both encourage 2 to 4 week campaigns, 2 being even more successful sometimes than the 4th. You don't really want to extend beyond the 4 unless you have 4 weeks, unless you have a very large goal amount you have things in place. But the main thing is having a strategy to get donors is very important going into it. I've seen the difference from campaigns that I did just thinking, contact everybody right away, and a few times, and let's see what happens, and just keep hitting them hard, to then where you get a bit smarter and okay, I know my parents, maybe, not in my case, but maybe my parents are going to donate, or my best friend, or I know that there's this investor interested in putting in $5,000 or who knows what. Plan them out. Don't have them go right at the beginning, because your beginning is going to be great. Your end is going to be great if you get through the middle. plan to inform them or ask them to wait and give on those middle days, so that when people continue to check the site, they don't see a lull, because that's never healthy for the campaign. It just isn't, and for morale, even for you. I've never had that much difficulty raising money through any of these campaigns. I have never had huge goal amounts, though, so I'm sure if it was larger, I would feel far more stressed and different.
I've actually heard of sort of sub-campaigns personally where you get so close to your goal and it's an all or nothing, that the filmmaker will then go out and try to raise on his own a couple, even if it's out of his own pocket, a couple $1,000s, just not to lose the $10,000 that he's going to get.
Totally. Or some people even know, okay, I have this friend who will loan me a quarter of the budget if need be, so he'll put it into the end so that I don't lose all of my funding, and then I'll pay it back. That's kind of a way to cheat it. Kyle, though, had some great strategies for this when he was raising money for Figments of the Father that you can talk about as far as marketing and taking it even beyond just social media and emails. I don't know.
Yeah, to address what you said, I mean, you have to have the money in place so that if you get on a 10,000, if you get to 8 or 9 and it's the last day, I mean, you're an idiot if you set if you have no money going in. Just avoid that. But
easier said than done.
Explain it for like people who don't know at all. Explain just what you meant by that.
So if you have a goal amount, and say it's high, like $10,000, you need to have a safety net. You know, be it from your father, your grandfather, yourself, selling yourself. I don't know, but it would. I mean,
That's
it would
how you raise that much money so quickly.
It would suck to get to 9 and not make your film because you didn't have that 1,000 to put in.
Right, you get so close. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, when we did our campaign, we strategized the whole thing, you know, for a month before, and so we took into account that the middle was going to be really, really slow. And so we did a whole bunch of things. We put out postcards. We did kind of like a street campaign where a team of us would hold huge posters just to take it beyond social media, to show people we were serious. And it worked. It worked great. So.
Shifting a little bit to the downer side of all this.
Is this where I come in?
This is the Kickstarters is cool. It's fun. Indiegogo. This is all very exciting. Are there pitfalls out there that filmmakers just are overlooking in all of this?
Yeah, I think there are. They haven't. What's interesting, we're talking about some of the tax stuff or whatever with Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Some of this is so new. A lot of this hasn't really been truly fleshed out yet. But there are some things to think about. I mean, one is the tax side. 2 is making promises that you just can't keep, and at some point, people might get really angry. I mean, this is, for a lot of you, a personal campaign, which from a legal point of view means there's potential personal liability if somebody decides that they've been defrauded or cheated or whatever. So it depends on also what you're providing, maybe less so in the film world, but if you're pre-selling a product and your product doesn't work or injures somebody or who knows what, there are these other little pieces of potential liability and risk that you may need to worry about. They do take care of some of the things like the deposits and things like that. That money tends to be cared for to at least leave you out of the loop, the liability loop with that. But there are, the personal liability piece, the tax piece that hasn't been fleshed out yet. There are some things you need to worry about, at least have in mind.
There's a question in the back. Van, you're going to have to...
Actually, can I just add one more thing to that before? I know you've got a really good question, but this is just one other point.
It has to be good.
The other thing to keep in mind is that we're talking about Kickstarter and Indiegogo, right? And these are reward-based websites. There is a burgeoning proliferation of equity-based portal websites that are coming up based on a law that was passed back in April called the Jobs Act that on its face allows for crowdfunding by selling shares of stock in your company. Now, if you remember nothing else that I've said, just remember, don't ever do equity-based crowdfunding, at least not yet, because it's not even close to being something that you can really rely on. The rules aren't even set yet. So no matter what you do, it's illegal. But there are a lot of websites that are being set up in anticipation of the rules being finalized. So when you talk about the liabilities and the risks, there's a whole separate set of risks and liabilities that we'll have to talk about next year maybe. when the equity-based crowdfunding portal websites hopefully get up and running.
Van?
Actually, you answered one of my questions.
I try to do that, yeah. Answer them before they're asked.
And folks that are interested in private placement and equity-based, come June, is looking like when that is going to get launched. So the capability of actually getting private placement stuff out and equity-based stuff look like it's going to be June. Those rules should be written by that time. So that was my question, and we're on the same page, but people need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And actually, that could be very good news if you're looking to raise more money, but you got to be very careful about that because of the legal components that fit within that. And have a lawyer on your side, please, because otherwise you're in trouble.
Van, is that stock exchange for features you're talking
It could be, it could be actually for anything. It could be a doc, it could be a short, it could be a features. If you're going down that line and you're trying to sell stock so investors can get money back, that's what this one's about. To me, I love the crowdfunding. You know, there's wonderful stories out there. There's wonderful stories here in New Hampshire. I'll just give you one. Tom Rush, who's an old folk singer, he put up and this goes to your strategy component that is crucial, absolutely crucial. Tom put up a Indiegogo, it was, and he was looking for $85,000 to do a concert at the music hall, at the big concert hall in Boston.
Symphony Hall?
Thank you very much, Symphony Hall, to do his Club 47 again.
Oh, wow.
And on December 28th, that will occur. And he raised not $85,000, he raised $135,000. Wow. But he had a strategy, he had a database, he had an ability to get to people who knew who he was. And I talked to him the other day, he's done that, and he still has 75% of the house to sell as he lines up his entertainment. So if you use it correctly, it is really good. And the concept of investor, the concept of donor, I think you're right on the money. This is not a tax-deductible donation. This is a gift to you. Right. And a question I would have, because usually the gift is given with, you'll get a CD, you'll get a private concert stuff. So what is the gift, and how much does the gift cost? So if you're getting a CD and you're giving $50 to something, is that you're selling the CD for 15? Does that mean your gift is 35? That's sort of a legal question too. So the door is wide open for this stuff, and it is really cool.
Yeah, it is cool, but I think on the tax side, it can get really weedy pretty fast. And that's why I just say, you got to go into this with your eyes wide open and be aware that there might be some component of the money that you get that could be deemed to be, taxable income. I mean, to your point, you sell a $15 CD and somebody gives you $50, or you paint somebody's house for $2,000. Well, they paid you for a service, so maybe the entire $2,000. You probably shouldn't have brought that up. So it can get messy, but you at least got to be aware of it out of the gate. It's so new. I haven't heard any determination one way or the other definitively how it's going to be handled, but you at least need to be aware of it.
Laina and Lisa, you can jump in too. You guys had extraordinary campaigns, and Van touched upon the having an audience, and having this database of people. Did you find that your audience grew through your campaign or via word of mouth, or did you have this huge network already there that just jumped on it?
Yeah, it's a good question. A little bit of both. I mean, a lot of the reason why our campaign was successful for a few different reasons. One of them, though, is that the team of people, I will say having a team of people behind a project is incredibly important. It multiplies the amount of people that you're sending it out to, even if that person, let's say, doesn't think that they have friends who will donate or whatever. It's still out in the social media stratosphere. Another thing is that these campaigns oftentimes award your campaign with viewability on their site depending on how successful you have been, and part of that is marked by how often your thing has been shared and viewed. So simply, if you have somebody who is a producer or working in crew and is out there sharing your thing on social media every single day, it actually helps your campaign, even if it doesn't bring one donation in directly through that. So a group of people is very, very important, is the first thing I'll say. In our instance, a lot of our donations, I mean, Aaron, our writer-director, had made a feature film that was successful before that, and so we had a fan base that had rolled over from that. A lot of our donors were people who really loved his first piece, or who had known him from, you know, his lifetime pretty much in the arts, whether it was theater or music, and someone who was excited to see, oh, Aaron's doing another project, okay? So it's credibility of him as an artist. And all the other producers on the team, to their own degree, had the same thing. Friends of ours who saw, okay, I liked this project you did, I want to give this. So on the one hand, we definitely started with an audience on this campaign. That was one of our biggest right feed going forward. But definitely, especially through social media, we have, just through the amount of likes that we got through social media for our film, Only Daughter, when the film hasn't been made, hasn't even come out yet, we don't even have a trailer available yet, of people who maybe didn't even donate but now know about it because of it. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both. We were very lucky going forward with a fan base, but it definitely helped improve it, and more importantly, got us in a place where they've either liked our campaign or we have their email addresses. So not only do we have the fan base, but we know how to get in touch with them, and we have, when we have something to send them, which is really important.
And are you looking at converting some of those likes into donors if they aren't already?
The question was, are you converting likes into donors?
For future campaigns, or when you're during the campaign? Yeah, definitely. One thing, and I don't want to cut off your ability to answer the question too. One thing that I find very helpful when you do launch a campaign, you should create a Facebook event for the campaign itself, or whatever social media site you use, Twitter, whatever. But I usually create an event that is the duration of the campaign, so that I know if somebody forgets, where was that link that I saw on Facebook that one time, if they say that they're attending, or even if they don't, if they've been invited, that event will be up in their top right-hand bar the duration of your campaign. So it'll be there constantly to remind you. They say that it takes 7 times for someone to see a crowdfunding campaign till they actually donate. So you want it to be constantly coming at them. So that is one way, having it available there. And then it's a forum for you to be able to, if you forget, you can just search in Facebook. What was it? Only Daughter was called? Okay, yeah, here's the event there. And there's the link right to the Indiegogo campaign, because it's not like you're on Indiegogo every day, but most people are on social media sites every day. So through the event, you create the event after creating the page. So usually what would happen is either somebody donates and is right then prompted to like the page, or vice versa. They hear about it through a friend, they like the page, and then because they've liked it, they see, oh, there's a campaign going on, let me go ahead and donate. So yeah.
Lisa?
Going back to your question, since we had 2 campaigns, we were really surprised that a lot of people donated again for the second campaign. It was like they, especially showing the excerpt from the film really helped them see that, oh, they're actually doing this. And they were willing to come back for more. The other thing that we should have done probably is set up like a $1 incentive to just donate $1, because what you said is really important. You can get your page featured on the Kickstarter homepage, and that helps a lot. That helps draw a lot of people that you don't know in, and if you do $1, then you have a lot of activity on your page.
Yeah, we had something else really quickly on that. We were very fortunate. We had a lot of shares through email and through social media, a lot of individual donations, and then we far surpassed our goals. So we were featured every way that you can get featured on Indiegogo. It was in the top of the films thing, it was the top of their homepage, it was their tweet of the day. We got all of that stuff, thank goodness, which really helped us. And the reason why you want those things is then you'll go scrolling through and you'll say, who is this person that just gave $250 that nobody knows? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I would Facebook search the name and see mutual friends. Does he know Carlina? Do they know Sarah? Do they know? And you realize, no, nobody knows who this person is, but they just happen to see, and it's somebody who is interested in sharing, some of their wealth or a little bit of their wealth or whatever with a good cause that they get impassioned about, and they see, oh, this person's so successful. Why? Let me check out that campaign. And if your pitch is good and if your perks are good, then maybe they'll donate if they know nothing about you or your previous work.
Maybe you can raise money for your project by selling the list of names of people who donate $250.
This is
That's
an
a great
excellent
idea.
Are these websites specifically for like full-length films?
Oh, no.
I mean, like, what other applications can you use it?
Do you want to?
The question was, how can you use these websites? Is it just for feature films, or can you use it for other films?
No, anything. I mean, it can't be a fund your life, they say, so it can't be, I want to go back to school, or I want to start a business, but any sort of project, it doesn't even have to be arts related. They have all different types. If it's an actual project, then you can get it funded. I've done, like I said, movies, I've done books, I've done CDs, all that, any kind of project.
Like a YouTube channel. Could you get, I mean, like,
Starting.
I don't know.
Well, Kickstarter is pretty strict
What do you-
guidelines on that.
If you were to start like a trailer on YouTube, let's say, and people like loved it, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they could like campaign you from there.
Yes.
Or you have to send them an
So-
alternative website to where you're campaigning for.
So you're saying to create the initial trailer? Because you could raise money to create the initial trailer, start your own channel on YouTube, start to raise fans, and then utilize that to do a new campaign later for something larger, let's say a short or a series of trailers. But definitely for a video of any size, if you make a good pitch and it's an actual project that you're going to use the money to do, then of course. You have to have a vision.
Do a YouTube channel based off the funds that we get, and we'll try to roll that into something bigger.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just say, I'm going to make a trailer, end of story. It has to be something very explicit. This is the, this is the synopsis, or this is the plot, or this is the purpose, yeah.
We just want to teach people. And like,
Awesome.
draw them in, right?
Good for you.
Kyle, how about you? How did you get to your base? Or you had some pretty grassroots ways of doing this.
Well, one of the things I did for the month before was compile an email list of everyone I knew. Doctors, dentists, those are always the first.
Not lawyers, they're too cheap.
Yeah, lawyers are too cheap for sure. Teachers, everyone I knew. And then, so on the moment we launched, I blasted them all. And then would send them weekly updates and kind of reminders. Because I think it's really important to not throw it in their face too much, just to get back to that point. Because if people are annoyed by it, I mean, that's one of the worst things that can happen.
And did you hear from anybody that didn't want to hear about the campaign? Were there any negatives in any of these campaigns?
No, there were no negatives, but it was surprisingly silent. I like would never receive, and I think like 2 people emailed me back out of 100, but which is weird. But then a lot of people would donate, and then in person they'd be like, "Hey, saw your campaign. It's it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, congrats." So
Thanks.
I don't know. There's no answer to that, but.
Laina or Lisa, did you guys have any negatives on your campaign? Anybody complain or take me off your list?
No, I mean, I didn't personally target email addresses simply because I don't. I don't have many social email exchanges at this point in my life or my generation. I don't know what, but use email for business purposes. So there was a handful, but the majority of people who I am close enough on a business level with, I'm also friends on Facebook. So Facebook was really my personal main way of spreading the word. I think, I'm trying to remember, the only weird thing is that we would get a lot of, if your campaign, this may happen to everybody, I've only had it happen on this last one. I think if your campaign is getting good viewability, people will go on and post about their own campaigns in the notes, in the comment section of yours. And I felt awful, but I would go through and delete them simply because it just had nothing to do with our project. And sometimes, it was just confusing. Like, I wanted to read the real comments because sometimes there was actual questions in the comments. So it was the only unusual thing. But no, and I blasted people pretty hard on Facebook. There were nights where literally every 3 minutes I was posting it, and it was obnoxious to me. I hated myself during it, and nobody complained though. So
You just sat there posting?
literally, and just finding silly creative ways because it comes up in their mini feeds.
and you just find stupid things to say. I mean, it was absurd. Some of the things, it was too late at night for the most part. But yeah, you find new ways of saying the same thing so that one time you'll post it and somebody will see that. And for some reason, the line you're advertising, the perk that you're saying, you know, make sure you check out $150. I'm going to write you a song or something. All of a sudden, it's somebody new that'll see that, and that's what they click with, as opposed to the other 10 million things that I posted.
One of our filmmaker members is a guy named Bill Lichtenstein, and he's working on a documentary on the history of WBCN. And during his Kickstarter campaign, he ran his trailer, and a lot of the footage was Woodstock, and there was one clip that kept showing up of this woman at Woodstock, like, you know, dancing in circles with her arms flailing. During his campaign, he got a call saying, "That's me."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And this woman was pumped and like sent it out to all of her friends
So
and
do
her
that.
social media. So he hit his goal of 104,000 in
Wow.
a month. Yeah,
That's
so that was
awesome.
cool.
That's amazing.
So you
That
never
could have
know
gone
where
another
your
way.
Campaign's
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
What?
I was wondering what we were going to say after.
Yeah.
I just
I
wanted
know.
to talk real quickly.
Yeah, Kyle.
There is, I don't know if you got this beyond your comments, but there is this like really weird, at least on Kickstarter, it may be different on Indiegogo, but like Kickstarter camaraderie that happened. Like we had, films would follow us, and so like to be polite, we'd follow them, and then it would go back and forth, and they'd write in, and like they'd donate, which is like really strange.
Yeah.
But it was really kind of cool that people were, you know, up in arms to help each other.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
But it's bizarre. It's beautiful and it's bizarre, I would say, because on the one hand,
Totally.
for example, with my band, I did a Kickstarter. Every band that I'm good friends with has done them, and I book shows as well. So I'm friends with lots and lots of bands, and it's very regular, almost every week, that a new band that I booked at one point has a Kickstarter, and it's hilarious because I always donate, and they donated to mine, and it's the same money that's being, you know, shifted on. But it's beautiful at the same time. And we each take turns holding it, you know, at a different moment. At the same time, it was very strange. We had a few people who, very small amounts, you know, would donate $10, $15 and then put a note like, here's my campaign, donate to mine. And on the one hand, it's great because you're adding fans. So that's invaluable. It's not just about the money. But at other points, it was like, if you're trying to raise this money, why are you giving it to me?
And why are you giving away other people's money?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I can't donate to you. I'm trying to raise this myself. Like, this is a real campaign. We can't make this movie without it. So it does get a little strange.
But I mean, it does make sense in the, like having more backers.
Yeah, maybe.
If you each increase by a backer, I mean, that's great.
Yes, exactly.
Do you know of any instances where there's been like a consortium of maybe filmmakers that are applying for a lump sum that's going to be distributed among projects?
Oh, that's interesting.
I think if you make a strong enough case for it, it would have to. I don't personally know of any. I don't know if anybody else does. I think if you clearly define it as a project in itself, that the coalition is a project, then yes, then that's completely fine. And that's a very interesting idea because then you would definitely up the amount of backers you'd have and awareness, and you'd probably get more visibility. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and ideally you could have projects that were at different levels of completion.
Exactly, definitely so. The key thing I would say in that is you'd have to just have your messaging very, very clear so that people understand exactly what they're giving to, and it's that they will help fund the project they want to fund and that kind of a thing. But it's an interesting idea.
We got a couple other questions out here. Carlina?
I just want to go back to Kyle's point because he made a very good point, but he made it very quickly about annoying people. I think that's something you can't stress enough, the annoying factor, because I get annoyed really easily. And I got your email and went, all right, I'll deal with that. I'll see it 7 more times, and then on the 7th time, I'll look at it. And I think the reason you two were not annoying is because you became your own productions. It was a show to watch you guys raise your money.
That's
it was like, okay, where are we going to see
What
Kyle
low will
standing
she
outside
stoop
in the
to?
sandboard? Yeah, what were you doing? And then I got into it because I was like, well, if Laina's doing all this ridiculous stuff, I'm going to offer my own personal perk based on what I know my people.
Inappropriate
Inappropriate pictures of me on
videos,
set. Pictures of me in the fanny pack.
Tell everyone, because you guys are together.
We're,
Explain who you are.
well, we're not together.
Together,
Well, Carlina was a producer on
the
Only
thing.
Daughter with me
Yeah.
as well, and she did many other things as well, line producing.
Yeah,
for
stay
CB,
from my
so
panel. That's
she
another one.
helped.
But
yes, we are. By
she's
the
good.
end of it.
But so talk a little more about how you made watching the campaign fun and not like, oh my God, will these people just shut up about the money? Because it was great.
I'm glad you thought it was great. I really thought it was ridiculous. I mean, there were moments. I mean, I tried to put myself, I suppose, into it. So rather than your generic, I'm doing this campaign and this is a great cause and I feel passionate about it, fun my life kind of a thing. It was more of, you know, what in my experience, what have I said on Facebook, I suppose, that has gotten a good laugh? Yeah. You know, or has perked up people's interest. What is controversial? What is this? At one point I posted jokingly, I think that I was going to, I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but that I was going to put a picture of my chest online. And then the priest that was in my church when I was growing up, you know, just put sigh, you know, and I realized, and then my mother was on there, and then I felt awful, and that got, but it was funny at least because of course I was joking, I wasn't gonna do it, but it got like 49 comments on it. So it's like these are the kind of things, I'm not saying to offer naked pictures of yourself, but silly things like that, you know, and constantly putting the goal amount really helps as it changes. It was so fun to be like 500, 525, 585, and the other thing too was make little goals for yourself every night. You know, our thing was like, we're at, you know, 2,825. Let's make it a 3,000 tonight. Oh, and another thing that I did quite often that did bring in several hundred at the end of most nights is that I would say that I wasn't going to sleep until we got this amount and would just very annoyingly say, like, please, I'm tired. Let me go to sleep. And usually somebody out there would be like, here's $150. Go to bed, for crying out loud. You know, so little things like that.
But I was going to say, do you ever have like a depression?
It's very normal in the middle. Our campaign, we did it in 12 days. So we had our depression, but it was about a day long. And we had a great producer with us. One of our other producers, Sarah, was very, very perceptive of that, of the fact that there would be the lull, and she waited and targeted a few people just at that right moment, or I knew some people were going to give, and I asked them, please wait till then. So we pretty much survived it unscathed. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, ours was pretty scary because we started off really hot, and but our entire campaign was like almost perfectly linear. So those first few days, I was wicked excited, you know, and we'd gotten all this money. It's like, oh my God, if it drops by like $100 a day, we're screwed. Yeah. And it just, you know, it never did because, you know, we'd planned it out and we'd done all this guerrilla stuff, and I don't know, it just worked. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to something that you said, Kyle, because I helped a little bit on their campaign from home. I ran their Twitter feed, and so I was helping, and so they had 3 weeks, and I'd like to know how long Lisa is scheduled for yours too. So make sure you answer that as well. But through that Twitter feed, we started getting followed by other filmmakers who are on Indiegogo, and then it became this camaraderie thing, and I was doing a lot the same thing, like I'm not going to bed until we get, you know, awesome. just get this retweeted 15 times, and we kept getting more retweets and more retweets, and it was, you know, it was kind of fun because I couldn't be with the sandwich board team, but
part of it.
I was sick, so I was sitting in my pajamas tweeting for 3 weeks. It was a 3-week campaign,
but people
and
like
it was so much fun. But then I had a few extra dollars, not a whole lot, but I had, you know, like $25 and $30, and so I did make a couple of contributions to campaigns in the Father Figments, the @Father Figments, signing off as them, just to help get that out there.
Yeah,
and we did. We had cross promotion, and we had one big group from over in Russia who. Actually, you know, those guys had like several thousand followers, and they were like, "Help Father like, Figment!" You know,
like
they're almost it was just
amazing,
and so we helped them reach their goal, and they're shooting a feature right now, and I can't wait to invite them to New Hampshire Film Festival next year.
That's excellent.
Talk about, you know, some of that back scratching stuff, and Lisa, you know, how long your 2 campaigns were.
I did none of the back scratching. And why? Because I had no money. I had to save mine in case we didn't make it. And I just wanted to draw a clear line. I think there's a big difference between donating personal money to a campaign and signing off versus using like your actual campaign money to do so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that
Well,
may
that's
have happened
dishonest
a
to
couple
your
times.
Not
with us, but
yeah, I don't even know people could. You technically shouldn't even be capable of doing that because you don't get your money till the end. But that would definitely not be a good plan, even if you could, simply because people have donated for your camp. They have donated for you to make your project. It is their not investment, but they don't want you spending the money on somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's.
Yeah, you definitely have to like consider your public image too. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to post about, you know, your new car that you bought during the campaign or something like that.
No, it's very true.
Or, you know, like, check out this sweet antique I just got. Don't do that. Definitely
Did you
don't.
do that, Kyle?
I avoided that.
I bought
all of them, but I just didn't
New car,
post.
sweet antique.
And Lisa, can you jump on to Dana's?
We did, our first campaign was about a month, and our second campaign was 2 months. And that was probably a mistake. There was a big lull. We started strong, and then we got sort of nervous, but we made it. Good. But yeah, our first campaign did, you know, we went way above our goal. The momentum stayed up there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have kind of an interesting question about the second campaign. I want to know if anybody did a second campaign after failing the first time. I had a sort of an interesting thing. We're in the process of shooting a film, and we set up a campaign, and I did all the right things, had money set aside, but I set my goal, I think, too high. So we made about half of it, and then it was Kickstarter, so we didn't get it. But
Can I ask how high the goal was?
it was 20 grand.
Yeah.
It was, right. I studied everything, and then it was just really, I should have done, if I'd done 10 to begin with, we would have hit it.
Yeah.
But what I ended up doing through that was basically sent out through Kickstarter saying, if you're still interested in being a part of this project, you can always go to our website, and we got 98% of that.
That's really amazing.
The unfortunate part is that we don't get to share the success of the Kickstarter. So as far as everyone else knows, of all the things that we pushed, we flat out failed.
Right.
We did not reach our goals. So we got that good chunk of money. We raised a bunch of money through other things, so we're doing fine. But we're ready to do another campaign. So I'm just curious, going like, everyone had already talked about doing one campaign, then doing a second campaign anyway. But once you failed the first time, I feel like I'm going back to the same people going, hey, remember that thing we failed on?
And in some ways, yes, you are. So
I am
it's
a failure,
okay.
yeah.
No, not you're a failure. In some ways, no. In some ways, yes, you are going back to the same people.
Yep.
So you need to make a very good case for yourself.
Right.
You
and we have a trailer now. We have a lot more than we did.
Well, exactly. Show more, give more, and try to show maybe some differences and be honest about it as well.
Say that
you know what I mean? Admit to the failure. You don't have to say we failed.
Right.
You know what I mean? But admit to the fact of what was, that the timing wasn't right but now because of the timing and this, we now are so much more well equipped and prepared and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I know that people definitely do second campaigns in lieu of a failed campaign, but it always helps if there's some new dimension to it. And a trailer, those kind of things really help. The other thing really fast, Matt had asked, how do you pick your funding amount? The one thing that I will say, and I've done a wide panoply of amounts for different campaigns. In our personal campaign, we had a very low goal for very specific practical reasons, and thank goodness we exceeded it. But the other thing to keep in mind, it's very difficult for an artist to have to put a value on their product and on who they are and what they've accomplished. But it is very important in crowdfunding to be conscious of where you're at. On the one hand, yes, if you've had a successful film before you, or if you usually get paid X amount of dollars for a film and that is what you're entitled to, yeah, artists need to stand up for themselves and actually make the rates that they should be paid. You know, it's absurd how much, because it's art, we sacrifice our own financial stability. But I will say, you are also throwing yourself at the mercy of the public, and you want to show that you are willing to do this on what you can get, and you have to be conscious of the fact that, is this your first campaign? Because even if your film is worth, and I'm using this number, I have no idea about you, so I'm going to use a different number. Even if your film is worth $40,000, and that is so low, and that's the bare minimum you need, and of course nobody would question what are you going to spend $40,000 on? You have a budget, everything's clearly marked. It's still maybe your first Kickstarter campaign, and you still may need to ease into it. So either choose Kickstarter or crowdfunding for another project and start small, or go smaller and say, this is for the, whatever, we're only raising money for rentals of this project, and later we're going to raise money for post-production or whatever. The other thing that really helps in all of these, you create a profile for yourself in any of these websites, and when people search you, they're going to see lots of successful campaigns. And it's fine if you have a failure. That's no problem at all. But that'll help. Like, try a smaller one out there and do it shorter, whatever, just so that you can build up some credibility. And then you go from, I raised $10,000, I raised $25,000, all of a sudden I'm raising $100,000, but I've proven myself all along, and I have good product to show for every campaign that I've done.
Can I just add something to that? So soon I came to know Nelson DeWitt, who wrote the Kickstarter's Guide to Kickstarter. And we were talking to him about campaigns and failed campaigns. And he said that, because he's done tons and tons of research, and he said that anything over 10 is like incredibly hard, just exponentially worse. Yeah, so I mean, I think you just have to provide them more, as Laina said, lower the goal. And hope you go over.
Yeah, there's no harm in splitting it.
Yeah.
We would have. I mean, that's the crazy part.
And I think people. I mean, it's a really noble thing to do. It's really courageous. I think.
98%.
And people would recognize that.
Yes, and 98% of your people coming back, and so I mean that's amazing. Yeah. That's an extremely high number. I'm blown away. So you're set up for success.
Were there people who didn't donate that had donated on Kickstarter?
Yes. Yeah.
So your second campaign could be very successful because of that,
People that went, oh, you didn't make it.
Yeah.
Can I still give?
Right. Yeah.
Just to that point, one final thing. I mean, just a couple of statistics is on Kickstarter. This goes back probably a couple months, but there were about 26,900 successful projects on Kickstarter. 7 had been $1 million or more. Wow. 200 had been 100K or more. So that means 26,600 had been under 100K. And I bet to Kyle's point, a huge chunk of those are 10 grand or less. Yeah. So the amount you're trying to raise makes a huge difference. Yeah.
I was curious about the dovetailing off of what he said. If the strategy or the politics of you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, but it's not the only money you're going for, and you do have a history of and on projects, it's part of a funding strategy that includes all of these. Now, you can say that as a credibility statement that you do have other funding for other things, but then your Kickstarter campaign or your other crowdfunding campaign, it's like, well, they don't need the money because obviously they're getting it from other places. So how do you go about that? How do you play that when the ability to do your project won't hinge on this campaign, but you're trying to do it as sort of a portfolio of funding?
Totally. In my opinion, highlighting what the advantage is to your audience is really good through that. The perks are going to be really important in that, and stressing the fact that this is a way for them to get involved. So yes, you list this is a small chunk, but a very be honest about it. Yeah. Show, okay, we're trying to get money, whatever, this much through this sponsorship, this much through this grant, whatever. But again, stress the fact that it's not like, oh, we've got this coming in here, we've got this. Like, all of these things are goals that we're trying to do, and this is the way you can help us reach one of the many goals that we're trying to reach. And people will definitely respond, I think, in that way, especially also if you do raise some of your other things first. Yeah, a lot of people will respond well if this is, we've raised $45,000 for this film. We need $60,000 for it. This is just get us over the hump. This is the last thing that we need. People will definitely be like, oh yeah, here, this is my chance to help get you over because you've already done all the work to raise that much, And
in some ways you've been kind of vetted because of
exactly,
that funding.
Exactly.
Transparency, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
And people are funding you already, so it must be worth funding.
Any other questions out here while I'm...
Hi, this is for the whole panel. My name is Rick Swafstar. How you doing? Making an independent film. Kyle, I want to ask it to you first. This goes for all of you guys. If you were going to be a dinosaur, what would you be?
Oh my gosh, I love dinosaurs. I am one.
Well, you're
I should not have just said
a velociraptor.
A velociraptor. No. Awesome. What about you, Lisa?
A stegosaurus.
A stegosaurus. Nice.
So.
Good big tails.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew?
I don't know. I guess I got to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Oh, they got small arms.
Yeah, small arms, but they're mean. A lawyer, you need a little bit of that. So.
Okay.
I ask myself this question very regularly, and it's down to 3: a velociraptor, a pterodactyl, because I would really like to fly. But I really love brontosaurus, which are not called that anymore, but that's what most people know them as, because they're really beautiful and they're vegetarian.
All right, awesome answer. What about you?
Was Snuffleupagus a...
Oh, he should
Yes,
be. He could be
it
a
was
woolly
actually
mammoth. Good
Big Bird's.
answer.
It was Big Bird's imaginary friend.
Totally. I'm the PBS.
You're awesome.
Nice.
I'm down with you. Thank you guys so much. You guys gave a great panel for us tonight. Like, I want to appreciate you guys. And thank you for coming out here and giving us
Good
your
luck
time.
with your project.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being part of mine.
We had one more question back there.
We have a new MC.
We have one more question, I think, back there.
Question, you want to come up or? Well, no, I was just making the analogy that people choose Mac
one or the
PC,
other.
They choose one or the other. So
Trident or Orbit.
Mac.
I'm Mac.
Yeah.
Mac. Oh, definitely Mac.
Never.
Are there any limitations? Say if you have a 4-week campaign and you hit your goal in week 2, can you run it for the
Yeah,
you
it
have to,
stays
first
running.
of all.
Yeah.
You have to, and it's great. It's an opportunity. Most people, if they do that, they do exceed their goals. I think we reached our goal in like 75% of our time, I think, or something like that, or even half. I think it might have been half. I think it was half the time. Anyway, you might lose some momentum. Some people are like, why would I? Then you really have to push things like perks, or this is what we're going to spend the money on now that we have the opportunity. But yeah, you have to, so you might as well keep pushing it.
We were talking about failed or successful campaigns, and I've seen some filmmakers where they actually, if they fail on Kickstarter, they'll try it on another platform. I mean, is there any value in that, or should you just rethink it altogether?
My thought, the only advantage to that, in my opinion, is that you don't have the track record. So if you started a campaign with, I've done this, or I've seen people do this. I was waving goodbye to somebody, sorry. Where let's say that you did a campaign on Kickstarter and it failed. You might want to go over to Indiegogo so that there's no track record of, they failed before. Or you simply create a new username on the site that you're already familiar with.
And then go to totally different people?
Yeah. Well, you can go to the same people, but at least you vet the fact that maybe if you had gone to all your friends, maybe only 30% of your friends actually clicked through and looked at the campaign. Well, now for the rest that didn't and that time and don't know that you failed, they'll go through and they don't have, they have 2 campaigns and that one failed. It's just a good way to hide your tracks.
Have you heard of anybody doing both?
Yes.
At the same time?
An Indiegogo and a Kickstarter?
Yeah.
No, I think that's probably dishonest in my humble opinion, but that's my... and I think it cuts down... No, I think people but I don't know. What does the lawyer have to say?
I was going to say dishonest, but probably not illegal. So
Probably not illegal. Unless it's for the exact same campaign. That's the only thing. If it's the exact same thing, then you're raising the money twice, I would assume.
I would just say, though, it seems to me that, if you failed on one, going just to another platform, I mean, you still have the same sickness, right? You haven't really cured the problem with how you're doing your campaign. So it's more an issue of fixing the underlying cause.
Yeah.
Or rebudget your production and kind of explain to people,
Yeah.
look, we couldn't make the money, so now we're doing it for this much instead.
Yeah, failing is very, very. It's never about it's never about the platform you chose, unless you really feel strongly that somebody doesn't like Indiegogo or Kickstarter. It's rarely about the actual project. A lot of times failed campaigns are simply about your execution of it, whether it's your pitch or it's your campaign throughout of how to get the word out there. I have seen projects that I'm like, who on earth would want to donate to this? It seems like the most ridiculous thing, but they did a hell of a job marketing it, and their pitch is convincing. And so even I was prompted to want to give. I mean, you're selling, your product. It's marketing.
The only reason I can think that anyone would change platforms is they failed a Kickstarter, and so they went to the flexible funding of Indiegogo.
Yes,
I mean,
true. Which
that's
Indiegogo
the
you
only
can do
reason.
either.
Maybe you didn't know about Indiegogo beforehand,
call.
which is
I think that was the case.
you have a lot more problems coming.
They failed on Kickstarter, not realizing that it was an all or nothing, and they said,
Right.
"Oh well, maybe if I try it on Indiegogo, I can keep what I."
Right. Which Indiegogo, so you can do either or with Indiegogo. You can do flexible or you can do fixed funding. It's up to you. But yeah, that's a definite reason.
Kickstarter's older than Indiegogo?
Yes.
I believe so. I don't know by how much though.
Excuse me, I don't have much voice left. what was my question? Oh,
Good
yes.
festival so far.
So, Laura, I'm interested in more about how your operation operates with respect to, if somebody wants to give money to, help out on a campaign, and they happen to have a lot of it, let's just say, and they want to, work that tax deduction angle. Do you ever have a situation where somebody wants to give money, but yet wants something kind of in return? That whole you can't get anything from a donation that you give.
Do you mean get a credit on a film or
really
kind
anything,
of anything in return?
Because isn't that a little
say,
tricky?
Just hypothetically, if somebody donates, I mean, you're using bigger numbers, I would imagine, but somebody donates $100 to your campaign, and in exchange, they're given a DVD. So we have to determine ahead of time how much the gifts are worth.
Okay. Got
And so then
What's
I
tax
would send a letter saying, thanks for your $100 donation. The gift you received is worth $25. Therefore, your tax. So your $75 would be what would be considered.
Okay, and your
tax
organization
deductible.
works out all of that kind of accounting and
Yes.
reports back to the donor. Okay.
Yes.
And then on the flip side of that, actually, Matt, you were talking about this, and Van mentioned it as well, about equity raising, and I'm not familiar with it at all. So the mention was about rules that are coming out in June or whenever, and wonder if anybody on the panel or anyone else in the room can talk about what all that means.
Van
Yeah, so there was, I think I mentioned this a little bit anyway, there was a law that was passed back in April called the Jobs Act, and as part of the Jobs Act, which was intended to spur kind of economic growth, there was this equity crowdfunding law that was put into place. But there's so many constraints and restraints around it, it's hard to figure out how, when the SEC finally gets around to making rules, what those rules are going to say that's going to make it practically doable for equity-based crowdfunding. The rules, I can't remember when the rules are due out, but I know that they're not even really close to being on schedule. So I don't remember when the deadline is off the top of my head, but I know they're going to be late. And I'm not, the SEC is under a lot of pressure to issue the rules because this was such an important political thing to, equity-based crowdfunding, it's going to be great. But there are so many things that they're worried about. Really, what they're worried about, I mean, the whole goal of the SEC is to make sure that people, when they invest in stock, aren't being scammed, right? And, I talked a little bit about that before. I haven't seen a lot of evidence when I've looked on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, people being worried about being scammed. The crowd has done a pretty good job of ferreting things out. But when you start talking about, raising money up to $1 million with the crowdfunding law by selling stock, the concern is that it's just going to be a tool for people who are very dishonest to make a lot of money and take advantage of people who can't really afford to do that. So the rules, what happened was the law was coming through the House and the Senate. I think the House passed it, and then the Senate version put in so many constraints because they were so worried about investor protection. At this point, I think it's going to be largely kind of unworkable. So with the law that's out there, that's already very tough. The rules that are going to come out have to implement the law and also add some additional, hopefully, clarity to what the law generally says. And it's just going to make it a very small window of opportunity for people to be able to figure out how to efficiently and effectively raise money by selling equity. The more restrictions there are, I mean, in the legal world, the more restrictions there are and the more things you got to comply with, the more expensive it becomes.
Right.
They've set up such a structure that I can't figure out how it's going to be cost effective for people to be able to get into it and really do it effectively.
And until that time, is it flatly illegal to try to issue stock? In
I mean, the
exchange
SEC has literally on its website a posting that says, whatever you do, don't do equity-based crowdfunding because we haven't told you what the rules are yet. So whatever you do, you're violating something because, we don't know what the game's going to look like.
And one quick follow-up to that, which is in-state, SEC, I'm not familiar with the ins and outs, but to the extent that it's a federal agency and deals with interstate transactions, if you're going to raise funds, let's just say, for example, solely in New Hampshire, and you're subject to state law and perhaps not federal law under certain limits, are you familiar with that? And
so whenever you I feel like we're doing a kind of a scared straight program on equity-based crowdfunding, which is probably good, by the way. You should all be very scared. Keep you out of prison. But whenever you sell securities, you have to comply both with federal and state securities laws. So I've been talking a lot about the SEC and the SEC rules. Those are all very important. But frankly, for a lot of this smaller money-raised stuff and the smaller equity-based stuff, the states are going to be more amped up about this than the federal government will be. I mean, the federal government tends to really look for the big fish in the sea, and they go after those folks. But the states, they really take it they think it's their serious responsibility to protect investors from the smaller type deals. So you're right, there's two layers of investor protection, the federal government and the rules and making sure people are complying with those rules. But I think the states are also going to do what they can to make sure that they feel they're effectively fulfilling their role to protect investors on these smaller deals.
Is there like a cap?
On the crowdfunding side, the way it's set up is the federal rules actually kind of preempt state law. You know, the goal again is to make it easy to raise money. So instead of having 50 sets of rules with each state you got to comply with, you're able to comply just with the federal rules, and the states can't say no. If you're trying to raise up to $1 million, I think is the cap on that. But even with that, a lot of the actual enforcement of any issues that come up or any claims of fraud, the state regulatory agencies, I think, are going to take those a lot more seriously than the SEC. You know, if somebody says, hey, I was defrauded out of 50 grand, you know, the SEC says, well, I can either pay attention to that or from the claim of somebody who said they were defrauded of, $10 million. They tend to focus on the bigger fish, and then the states tend to focus on the smaller ones. But the states can also be really, really diligent. So,
Any other questions out here? This is your chance. Why don't you come on over here real quick and for the benefit of our home viewing audience.
So my question is for Laura. So if do you have to be a formalized entity to engage with your company?
No.
Or can you be an independent filmmaker?
We're all independent filmmakers.
Okay.
You can have a lot of the independent filmmakers have their own company.
Yeah.
But they are members of us as independent filmmakers. Is that help? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, we have a follow-up.
Uh-oh.
So, okay, so equity, we got that side. What about profit participation? Is it illegal to offer in exchange for a donation?
Is this a hypothetical?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds very hypothetical.
Hypothetically, if donor A wants to give, is it illegal to offer in exchange for a donation profit participation?
Well, it's not a donation, right? Because you're providing something substantive in response. And again, without providing any specific legal advice, which I could never do on YouTube, I think that you're getting very close to the line about whether or not something's a security or not. And that's what when you talk equity, securities, the more what you're doing looks like you gain by basically by being an owner of the business in some regard, the more likely it is to be a security, and the more likely you are to run up against the federal and state securities agencies, right? So profit participation starts to sound a lot like what somebody who's a shareholder would get in a company, right? They share in the profits of the enterprise. So you're getting dangerously close.
And that's something, even with crowdfunding, that is very, very carefully scrutinized, is that all of your perks are just, a gift, a special little thing, but that it's nothing, it's not a discount, it's nothing that you are profiting by in any way with your gift, or your donation, excuse me. So that is something that that is very specific in the guidelines of all the crowdfunding, is that you can't have any kind of, situation like that.
Got it. Thank you.
I personally think that getting a song by Laina, I profit heavily by
You haven't heard all the songs.
Any other questions from our audience? I would like to just get, particularly for our crowdfunding filmmakers, just one last thought on parting thoughts as far as jumping into this or utilizing these sites. Laina?
Laina. My thought is be very prepared. Be well prepared. have a reasonable goal amount, have good, thoughtful perks that you know you can handle and manage, and have a very clear marketing strategy. Because it's the saddest thing when there's a great campaign out there and you put all this work into it and the pitch is great and it looks wonderful and you put it out, but there is no plan for that lull in the middle, or you don't know how beyond your emails that you send out, and then 30% of your emails respond back and the rest don't, and then what are you going to do? Try to see local papers. We had a local paper cover our story that we were doing a Kickstarter. Try to think outside of the box. Like, how can I reach more people? It doesn't just have to be through Facebook or social media, but how are there blogs that will post about it? I got other filmmaking friends of mine, or film critics, more popularly, to post about our Kickstarter campaign, because people, or Indiegogo campaign, because people who follow their blog and appreciate that person's taste in cinema will say, oh, this is being endorsed by him, I'm going to check it out. So have a plan, but don't be afraid of it, and don't be too proud. I mean, this is the way that things are getting funded. I mean, way back, art was funded by art patrons who came along and wanted to give for the sake of the art, and that has been lost over time, and people are looking for investments, and film, unfortunately, is not a very good investment these days in a lot of ways, unless you're doing very, very large things, and there's still always risk. So we're not looking for investors anymore. We're looking for people who value and appreciate the art form that we're trying to create, and find a way to communicate that passion, and hope that that people will respond and don't be embarrassed by it, because what you have to say and what you have to give creatively is something that people should pay money for, and that people should value financially, time-wise, whatnot, and don't be afraid to make those asks.
Lisa?
I would just say be creative in the way that you set up incentives, and in the way that you reach people, and not have that lull. And then also, at whatever you think your goal is, add 1,000 or 2,000 to it. Because if you really push hard, you'll probably get it, and you will definitely need that money.
Kyle?
Don't underestimate the amount of work it is. It's, a month of like 40-hour weeks at least, and then another month of 60-hour days. 60-hour weeks.
I want to know where I can get a 60-hour day, please.
Yeah. A point being, don't